Welcome to the Pucks with Haggs podcast, a proud member of the CLNS Media Network. Make sure to hit subscribe to the Bruins Rinkside YouTube channel and turn on notifications for when a new video drops on the channel. This show is also brought to you by PrizePicks, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, welcome in to the Pucks with Haggs podcast. As always, thank you very much for listening. This is the 210th episode of the Pucks with Haggs podcast. We always thank you for your questions, your interest, listening, interacting, everything up and down the board. So keep it going. Keep giving us ratings and comments on the podcast. We appreciate that too. I'm your host, Joe Haggerty. You can find my work at joehaggerty.substack.com. Subscribe and get yourself a premium membership. You got all of my Bruins and NHL writing sent straight directly to your inbox. I also write columns 3 times a week for the Boston Sports Journal, so check out bostonsportsjournal.com. Get yourself a subscription there as well. Today with me, longtime friend and colleague, James Murphy. Jimmy Murphy, tell everybody where they can find your work, my friend, because I know you're doing the writing and the podcast.
I am. So still doing the podcast with Pierre McGuire called The Eye Test, and we're on YouTube live 4 to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, except right now during the summer. We are just on every Wednesday, once a week, same time slot. And then also check me over at RG Media, where you can find me writing, usually like Joe, about 3 times a week. So go check that out as well.
Yeah, make sure to check out RG Media. Good stuff over there. And Murph, I can understand the 1 time a week for the podcast because we are in the July 15th to August 15th dead zone where everybody has escaped to their cottages somewhere in Canada and are nowhere to be found as far as anything getting done in the hockey world. Basically, nothing happens between July 15th and August 15th when captains' practices start like kicking up, and maybe like some guys that are out there that haven't been signed start signing. But what are you doing with your free time right now? Anything good?
Still writing, looking for stories, but you're right. It's tough to, talk to people because everybody's sort of shut it down for a bit here. But, I'll have a couple stories coming up soon. But I mean, other than that, just trying to catch up on rest and hanging with my daughter and enjoying the weather. It's supposed to get pretty hot this weekend, but we've had some good weather this week, though, man. I'm not complaining.
Good. Excellent. Tell Maddie I said hello.
Always like just turned 14, man. It's crazy.
Dude, we're getting old. There is no denying it.
Yeah. You got to get your Finn needs to get over and meet her and become her bodyguard, I think.
Yeah, he is getting to that age.
Tell him I pay well.
Rough around the edges hockey players can make good bodyguards. There's no question about it. All right, so let's dig into it. Really pretty wide open, Murph, as far as topics, as far as what we can talk about. We talked a little bit about the schedule the last episode, and we answered a few questions. But I'm just curious, where, big picture with the Bruins, what's your biggest sort of instinct feeling as to how next season is going to play out? And what you think a fair expectation is for this team. And almost even if you feel like, do you feel like a lot of the criticism that's been thrown at this roster and thrown at the moves, the free agency moves, is warranted? Do you think people are just sort of like, hammering this team based on last year's result and sort of, piling on right now, and that maybe it's been a little over the top and people are almost underrating what this team is capable of going into next season? Based on some of the things that they did. I'm just curious where you're at just vibe-wise with this team and what you think you're going to see next year.
So I can understand what you're saying in terms of underrated. I do think that this team will be, if they can stay healthy, and that's the big if, will be I look at them sort of where I looked at them before last season. I think they're going to be in the mix. I don't think they're a strong contender for the cup, but I don't think the playoffs is out of the question. But I think what's getting them all this hate right now and all the criticism is they just don't know when to not overpromise. And I think that's the problem. If you go back to their end of the season press conference, Joe, and you were there, and Cam Neely adamantly saying, we're not just trying to make the playoffs. and I'm paraphrasing here, we're trying to make a run in the play. We're trying to go deep into the playoffs
Right.
and play well into the spring. It's like, there's no need to say that. Don't, like, if you want to tell your players that and you want to speak within the confines of the dressing room that way and the practice facility, then that's fine. And I get that, because you don't ever want to say to your team, like, we don't believe you can go further than the first round. That's fine. But, the realistic point of view is that's where they are right now. They're kind of in the middle. And
Yep.
so when you go out of your way to promise that to the fans after the season you just had, and then you make signings that go more with a mid-team, so to speak, that's where I think they went wrong. I think it's like they set themselves up back in June, or no, it was April, because the season ended so early.
Yeah.
Back in April, I think that's why now when they go out and they sign a lot of bottom six forwards and role players, and I think we can all agree, and I'm not saying this is no reflection on the player. I think he's going to be a valuable player to the Bruins, but we can all say that when push comes to shove, maybe they had to overpay for Jeannot.
Yeah.
And I heard that's because there were a lot of teams in on him, and so they
Yeah.
wanted to bid him.
Yep.
But I just think, like, you combine what they promised and then sort of overplaying a role player. I get where the fans are coming from. I also, though, could see the Bruins saying, like, hey, look, we filled a lot of holes. We added a lot of depth. We added an element that we tried to add last year, but didn't really come to fruition because the size and the grit that we added didn't have a lot of speed to go with it.
Yep.
So that's where that's where I'm at with this team. I think they're still mid. I don't feel like they went way up or way down, but it does help that they could have a healthy Jeremy Swayman, a healthy Charlie McAvoy, and a healthy Hampus Lindholm.
Yeah. Yes. I think what you're saying, and I understand this, is that it's better to underpromise and overdeliver, especially where they are right now. And I agree with that. Like, but I also think they feel like they have to say, we want to win a cup no matter where they are, no matter what they do. And that's like the rote answer. Like, that's the default, where if you don't say that, like, you're not trying hard enough.
Is that them thinking that? I don't think the fans think that way. I think the fans are good fans and understand the game of hockey, Joe. And I think they'd appreciate more honesty and reality from management. That's all.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's definitely fair. But I also think, like, and people get all over the Tanner Jeannot thing, saying it's an overpayment. But, like, how much is that really going to be when the cap is going over 100 million next year? You know what I mean? Like, the cap is going way up over the next couple of years. His contract's going to be like a speck of dust. And like, by the time it's over, yes.
Yeah. The term was overdone.
And and he probably going to be slowed down and, like, in relatively tough shape in, like, year 4 and year 5 of that deal, probably.
Mm-hmm.
But is he still going to be able to go out there and slug it out with, like, another team's tough guy and try to protect like the skill guys and, at least take a shift on a fourth line? Yeah, I think he's still going to be able to bring those elements. So, and the way I look at it is this: they had that money and that kind of a term earmarked for somebody, and it should have been for Trent Frederick, and it was initially supposed to be for Trent Frederick.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't want to give it to him because they didn't feel like he plays that role enough. He plays it consistently enough. He even wants to play that role. Like, he just doesn't want to be that guy consistently. The guy that's policing the other team, the guy that is, fighting when he has to fight, the guy that, frankly, will go toe-to-toe with the other team's heavyweights and win and is, like, gonna do it, regardless of the situation. I feel like with Frederick, he would do it sometimes, but I think it was always him sort of, like, doing something that he felt like wasn't his role or shouldn't have been his role or wasn't something he completely wanted to do. He felt like more of a skill guy that had a skill background or wanted to be a skill guy and had visions of him being a top 6 guy that doesn't going to have to do that anymore. And he was kind of doing that to have his roster spot. You know what I mean? That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah.
Whereas Jeannot was more a guy that Jeannot wasn't drafted. Jeannot had to scrap his way through the minors to get to where he is. I think he played in the coast for a little bit. Yeah. Like, Jeannot really, and he, like, was an overage guy in junior. I think he played until he was like 20 in junior. Like, he's a guy that has had to fight tooth and nail for everything that he's had. So he knows what his role is. He understands what he has to do, and he's going to do it. And, like, he is going to do it while, like, he's fought the toughest guys around. Like, look at his YouTube clips. You know what I mean? He is legit tough. And I think they needed a guy like that, in addition to Zadorov, that was going to put the fear in other teams, is going to play that physical style, is going to set a tone. And I thought it was really interesting too, Murph, that Sweens talked a lot about protecting Hagens when he comes into the league and how much of a consideration that was for Jeannot and him being signed. And I know that like a lot of people poo-poo that and think it doesn't exist or think that's overrated, that sort of quality or that dynamic in a hockey team, but I still think it exists. I still think if you have a guy like Jeannot, people are going to think twice about taking liberties, especially if he goes out there and he hammers the other team's best player, or he hammers the guy that went out and took a liberty with Pastrnak or Hagens or whoever. I just think I think there's value to a guy like that where I'm okay with a little bit of an overpayment, even if he never scores 20 goals again like he did his first year in Nashville. But, I also think, I think this is going to be an entertaining team. I think with Isamont, I think with Jeannot, I think with Zadorov, I think with some of the other players that they have, and some of the young players that are coming up, I actually think this is going to be kind of a fun, sneaky, fun team to watch because they're going to play hard and be in people's faces a lot more than they've been the last couple of years, and certainly more than they were last year. I could not watch, Murph, and I don't know if anybody could, another season of them punting in games on the road and losing by 8 goals. You know what I mean? Too many times they just gave up last year in games and just got massacred, especially on the road, where that's just, you can't have that. I was glad that they made a big response to clear out whatever was going on there, at least try to, and bring in competitiveness again.
Yeah. I mean, I think all that's valid. I think the one thing I'll say is you bring up Hagens there, and I guess we could get into that later, but I just hope he doesn't mean this year in terms of protecting him.
No.
I think he needs to go back to BC for one more year.
Yep.
But I agree with you, and I have no problem with them bringing in that. The one thing, going back to what I'm saying, is I value what he can bring. Jeannot, that is. My problem is it just all of a sudden brings me back, Joe, to when you and I first started covering this team, and there was a player by the name of Marty Lapointe signed out of Detroit for much more than maybe he was really worth in terms of skill set.
Yep.
And it was, we come to find out there was a lot of stories that Jeremy Jacobs had gotten into a spat with the late Mike Ilitch, and it was out of spite. He was going to pay Lapointe whatever he could. It didn't matter. He was going to outbid everyone just to get him to spite Ilitch. and so it was almost like Lapointe came in here with that anchor on him of that contract, and he became public enemy number one when really he was doing everything he was capable of doing. He became a valuable player. Let's call a spade here. He's a huge part of Patrice Bergeron's development. He put him up, he was his billet family, and he was great for him. And he also was a big part of that 04 team that got upset by the Habs in the first round. So he brought a lot of value. He's the type of guy you want in the playoffs. And I think that's what Jeannot is. I'm just worried that, when people don't see him putting up 25 a year or 20 a year even, they're going to start to just poo-poo on him and start, see, this is why you shouldn't. And I hope that doesn't happen, because I do think, I'm like you, I do think he has a really important role on this team.
Yeah, I think there's a large faction of the fan base, though, traditional Bruins fan base, that appreciates a guy like him and will like him, and he will be liked because of the role he's, as long as he plays hard and he's physical and throws the body around, which he's always done. And he drops his gloves. Yeah, of course. I mean, that's of course, that's a huge consideration. And the fact that he's in his late 20s, it becomes more of a consideration given the physical style that he plays. There's no doubt about that. But I think you also had to bring in a guy like him too, and Isamont, because there's a lot of questions about Kostelic, right? And how healthy he's going to be able to stay playing the way he was playing and trying to play that way after having concussion issues last year. And, whether that is going to change the way he goes about what he does. I know he said it's not going to, but you wonder if you can continue to play that style if those kind of issues start coming into play. And just not wanting Zadorov in the box all the time, because he's the one that's out there trying to police that stuff.
I wanted to say that before too. I mean, he's got to get more discipline, and he's, I think if he goes out there with the mindset of being what they want him to be, as opposed to trying to be, Bobby Orr on some plays, you're not that, Z. Just do your job, get out there. You have value to this team. You don't need to make some fancy play through the neutral zone that always goes back the other way and ends up in the net. That's what drove me nuts too. Not just his dumb penalties, the turnovers and just the blind passes and this idea that he is, like I said, an unbelievable offensive defenseman. He has skill. Don't get me
He
wrong.
does.
He's a great
He
job.
definitely does.
But stop trying to be so fancy out there. Just keep it simple, and save the offense when you're out there on the second power play unit, and go from there.
Yeah, the amount of time, like the one thing I will say, I liked Zadorov as a player. I think in the playoffs, like you mentioned, Jeannot, like a guy like Zadorov, I think becomes an even bigger factor in the playoffs too. And you're going to see even more of an impact than you would have in playoff series when they get there. And I think that's got to be factored in. But like the one thing about Zadorov is I was surprised at the level of skill in his skating. I thought both were very good when he came here. But I was also surprised by how far away from the net he is a lot of the times in the D zone.
The puck sense is shaky. That's the only, and I don't know. They got to work with him, I guess, in practice and just be like, hey, man, this isn't where you should pinch.
It's just, and it's just like, I envisioned him as a Zdeno Chara type, like he was going to play the exact same way, and he definitely does not. He plays different than Chara did. And he almost plays.
How lucky we were.
Well, he almost plays like Chara did that. Remember that first year when he signed from Ottawa and he was trying to do way too much
under Dave Lewis.
Yeah, but he was trying to do way too much to justify the contract because they weren't a very good team, like all that stuff.
Exactly.
And it didn't work out well for him. Like he was much better when he kept it simple and played to his strengths. And occasionally like showed the skill and everything else that he can do. But didn't try to do it too much. But it'll be interesting to see what level Zadorov gets to as far as like what we saw last year, if there's another level he can get to or a simplification of the game that would help him out more, like coaches coming in, if that's going to change the way he plays it all that stuff's going to be really interesting. Your confidence level in Jeremy Swayman going into next year, just knowing him as a person, knowing him as a competitor, but knowing that last year was a tough look. Like the training camp holdout affected him tremendously. There's no question about it. I also think, he's a guy that I think looking back on it now probably needs to be pushed by somebody else in a goaltending tandem and needs a situation where like it's a good-natured competitive pushing back and forth between him and the other goalie. And that he might not be one of those guys that just you can throw out there 60, 65 times a year and expect like really good results. That's something that's still unproven, that he's going to be able to do that. And I do think you're going to see more Korpisalo this year, especially if he plays well early. And maybe that lights a little bit more of a fire under Swayman. But I also think we're going to see a much better Jeremy Swayman, regular training camp, regular offseason, all the contract drama behind him, motivated now to prove that last year was an outlier, aberration, and that he's got and that he can get back to the level that he was at a couple of years ago. Like, and they're going to frankly need him, Murph. This Bruins team is going to be built around defense and goaltending, and hopefully, for their sake, a power play that can do some damage, and they'll be decent 5-on-5, but they're not going to be outscoring teams. They're going to be winning based on Jeremy Swayman being brilliant and the defense being really good in front of him. Yeah,
look, I think, I don't know. I mean, you've been around him more than me last year, but I think when it comes down to it, if you had a private beer with Jeremy Swayman and said, "Were you humbled last year?" I think he'd admit it. I really do. I mean, he seems like a smart guy. He seems like he's a type of guy that's willing to learn from his mistakes. And I think he has to know that, like you said it right off the bat, that holdout, that was it. You knew right away. It was all downhill from there, and it went as predicted. And
why do you think, Murph? Why do you think Marchand was so pissed about that last year and vocal about it early on? Because he knew that was going to submarine the whole season, and a lot of veteran people knew that was coming, that he was too young as a goalie to know what he needed to get ready for the season, and he was not going to be able to perform after holding out for all of training camp. Too young, too relatively inexperienced, wasn't going to be able to get himself ready by skating at BU with like random college players or whatever he was doing, instead of like trying to get ready for the season. And it was clear to most people, I think, that have been around the block a bunch of times that like that holdout was going to like be a real problem for the whole year.
True. And I agree with everything. And I think he's part to blame, but I think that the biggest blame needs to go to Don Sweeney and his agent, Louis Gross, who, if we look back in history, had a pretty long contract dispute that ended up in the Bruins losing Torrey Krug. And, like this guy has a track record of taking it to the limit. He did it. He has the longest holdout in the history of the NHL since the salary cap came in with William Nylander back in, I believe it was 2018.
Yep.
This is his MO. And, hindsight's 2020, but Don Sweeney should have known this because he's already experienced it. And I feel like because of that, and I'm going to bring in another factor here, he should have never traded Hampus Lindholm before this thing was done. And I don't want to beat a dead horse, but when you're dealing with that agent, that specific guy, you got to know he's going to hang that over you. And you got to know that they're going to use that as leverage. And they did. And it hurt everybody. Swayman got hurt out of it and the team got hurt. But it's in the past. And I think knowing Swayman, he'll only use this as motivation. As long as he's healthy and like you said, they monitor his games more and they bring that down a bit, I think he's going to bounce back and have a real good year.
Yeah. One thing that's been amazing to me, Murph, actually, let's get into talking about the sponsors real quick, and then we will get into that portion of it. First of all, let's talk about PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America and the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Join over 10 million users and get started today. Instead of battling thousands of other players that could be pros or sharks, simply pick more or less than 2 to 6 players, stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll right in. It is fun and it is super simple. PrizePicks is the best place to win cash while watching sports. On PrizePicks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports, combine your favorite hockey players with players from basketball, baseball, esports, and so much more. You can now win up to 2,000 times your money on PrizePicks as well, and they also offer Venmo, MasterCard, and Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. And for those of you listening to this episode of the Pucks with Haggs podcast, we ask you to subscribe to the podcast, like and leave a review. And for those watching the show on CLNS and enjoying all this hockey talk, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the Bruins Rinkside YouTube channel, where you can find our show and a lot of other great Bruins content with fellow Bruins talkers like Connor Ryan and Evan Marinofsky. Also, please make sure to turn on your notifications so you know the very instant a new Pucks with Haggs podcast video drops on the interwebs. All right, let's get back into it, Murph. The one interesting thing about the goalie thing, and I wrote about this last week, is there was a lot of groundswell, I would say, in the last 7 to 14 days about the Bruins chasing after some of these unsigned restricted free agents, trying to clear cap space, a last-ditch effort to bring in some young top 6 talent to a team that's maybe shy at least one top 6 forward right now. And you would have to trade players in order to make cap space to have that happen. They have like $2 million in cap space right now. So there was a lot of talk about and I got this from a lot of questions in my Q&As at Boston Sports Journal about salary cap dumping Joonas Korpisalo or Casey Mittelstadt. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like completely batshit crazy and 10 being very realistic, something that could happen, where would you rate either scenario? Because I don't see how either one of those would be remotely possible in terms of people wanting to take on those players, in terms of not having to send a first round pick along with that player for the other team to take the contract. And in terms of these RFAs that are out there, wanting to sign an offer sheet with the Bruins right now, I just don't see the realistic scenario where you would be able to trade. If you wanted to trade a player to get cap space, you'd have to trade an Andrew Peeke or somebody that actually would be a useful
Zaka maybe.
Yeah, or be a useful player on this team. You're not going to be able to get anybody to trade Joonas Korpisalo after he had an .893 save percentage last year as Swayman's backup, coming off a season where he had an .890 save percentage in Ottawa and everybody was saying he was the worst statistical goalie in the NHL in 55 games for the Senators. And Mittelstadt was like really not good after he came here at the deadline. He's been traded twice now. This is his third team in, I think, 2 years. Like, nobody's taking either one of those players right now. The Bruins have to see it through this year, see how they play, and they would have to perform well, I think, in order to get to a place where they could be traded.
Yeah, look, I wrote about this a couple times with Korpisalo, Joe, and I mean, I've been told that he was definitely discussed, but more heading into the trade deadline and then again heading into the draft.
Yeah.
He was discussed, but more so discussed as the Bruins shopping him and not other teams inquiring.
Right.
And of course, the Bruins would like to get rid of that salary right now and free up that cap space there. And that's why they signed DiPietro, just in case they can. That's why they didn't let him go to market. And they know what they have. And that kid could, by the way, like, I know, Don Sweeney, I've done the fair share whipping. I know he's like the guy to crap all over right now. But when all is said and done, that might be one of the sneakiest trades we ever see.
Yeah.
And he traded him for Studnicka. And I think this kid's going to be a good goalie, whether it's here or not, we'll see. But, going back to Korpisalo, you're right. You nailed it. You're going to have to give up a draft pick just to get somebody to take that on. Even with the retained salary that Ottawa did when they originally got him, you still need to sweeten it up a bit there to make it happen. And, kind of good segue to that you brought up Mittelstadt, because I think that was the same exact thing that happened there with Colorado and the Bruins. I think they wanted Zellers, and the thing was, okay, well, then you're taking this guy on to sweeten the pot. I'm sorry, you're just going to have to right now. And that's why I think Mittelstadt is a Boston Bruin. I don't think it was necessarily that the Bruins like, oh, my God, we have to have him. Right. Do they think that maybe they can work with him and finally get this kid to reach his potential? Sure, and that chance is still there. But I'm with you. He's not tradable right now, and neither is Korpisalo. So, for fans out there who keep throwing their names out there and act like it's just going to be some simple phone call that Don Sweeney can make, that's not how the real world works. That's not how it works right now, even with a rising cap. You're going to have to give to get. And I suggested Zacher a few minutes ago there. He might not even be enough to get the type of top 6 RFA talent that they're looking for. I think it's going to cost a lot more than that.
Yeah, most definitely. Realistically, I think they're kind of locked in with what they have right now. I think Don Sweeney
training camp, Joe, like not just them, but the league as a whole.
Yep.
You look back to last year. I think it was August 20th when St. Louis did the offer sheet thing with the Oilers there and struck gold there. And then we saw a few deals after that. I feel like the market will open up in late August into September, but the Bruins specifically, maybe you're right. Maybe it doesn't matter. They're just already set, and they'll see where they are maybe at Thanksgiving or into the winter,
Yeah, I think that makes sense at this point. Given their cap situation and given what they would have to do to get cap flexibility, like, is there another player they could bring in on a tryout or a player they could sign for like a short-term deal to bring in? Yeah, of course. If there's somebody unsigned out there that they found interesting or intriguing, they could definitely do that. I just don't see anything significant happening between now and the start of training camp and the start of the season to at least see what they have and see what they can get out of some of these players. And that's Don Sweeney's MO, kind of, is he for the most part, wants to get the job, the work out of the way July 1. And then they will go into camp, see what they have, and they'll go to the start of the season to see what they have. And then if they have needs, they will address them, whether it's Thanksgiving, whether it's a trade deadline, whatever. It will be done like when it needs to be done. But I think there's also, Murph, this year, sort of that interesting thing with Hagens, too. And we can talk about him now, where I obviously don't think he's going to be there at the start of the year. He's going back to BC, and they want him to dominate, and he should dominate. And that's like what the first order of business for him is, to go to Boston College and be the guy on that team and be the player that everything is filtering through. And he's scoring more, and, he's the best player on the ice most nights. But then I'm interested to see if that happens and if he's as good as everybody expects him to be. Does he become an option late in the year? Because he certainly, if he dominates at BC, he would be gone after this year. He, everything that he said was wanting to be in the NHL as soon as possible. And I'm sure, if he had his wish, he'd be with the Bruins to start the year. And I think that the smart play is him not to do that and go back to college for a year. But I wonder if he becomes something they can look at as an option once the college hockey season is over, and if that plays into the mix as well.
For sure. And, not not to be Sally Downer for Boston College fans out there, they're not as good as they were last year. But then again, that's why I think Hagens, they're going to depend on Hagens a lot, and he'll have a way more playing time and he'll be the guy, like you said. But I think that's definitely a possibility because I don't see, BC making a deep run into the national tournament there. So, who knows? Maybe he comes up in late March or right around April Fool's Day there, and he comes into that lineup and starts to get a little taste of the NHL, and then that sets him up for the next year. I think that's the plan. I'm with you on that, Joe. The one thing I look at, though, right, even with him included, is how confident are you with the Bruins up the middle going forward? Because I'm not. I still think they need a big, whether he's a 1C or a 1B type guy. And I know those guys don't grow on trees, but I think that needs to be the goal because right now, I feel like they're pretty small up the middle.
Yeah, they're small and not, I would say not a dynamic offensively either. Like there's a lot going on there where they're going to still, like, I think the center situation might be a little better than it was last year. Mm-hmm. Maybe not though. Losing Coyle is significant for all the things that he did.
He's so underrated.
Did for this team and all of the sort of dirty work that he did and the role that he played and never complained about it. I do think like that's a consideration. I'm interested on a couple things, but first, like, who's your second?
You want me to go inside, bud?
No, go ahead. That's fine.
Too loud?
No, it's good.
Okay,
Who's your second line?
That's a great question. I mean, we mentioned Zacha there, right? Like, where are you putting Zacha? Is he a wing or is he a center? Like, I feel like every time they try to make him a center, it hasn't really worked as well as they would like, or maybe the Devils liked, and that's why they traded him. So I kind of got him on the wing there. But, I mean, I'm looking at this. I'm just going to pull up the depth chart right now. I'm looking at
I'll tell you what I have right now is I have Arvidsson as the left wing. I have Zacha probably in the middle. And then I have, like, take your pick on the right wing. I'm interested in this Blumel kid that they signed from the Stars organization, the Czech kid that ripped up the AHL the last 2 years. And where he factors in and whether he could be an option there or something they're going to give a long look to. But I feel like they're putting a lot of chips into Arvidsson regaining, what he was 2 or 3 years ago when he was 20 goals, 50 points, and, will be a net front guy in the power play. And like Zacha will either be a wing or a center on that line. Maybe they put Mittelstadt in the middle and they try to move Zacha over to the other wing. I don't know, but I think there's some interesting combos there.
I'm exactly with you on that, Joe. I think you look at that right now, they might not have any choice but to put Zacha in the middle there just because of his size. And can Mittelstadt handle that? I think that's one of the biggest things about Mittelstadt. I think this kid's got a ton of skill, but I'm not sure he can handle the daily rigors of a top six role up the middle. And so I'm with you. That's exactly how I would see that lineup. I do think if Elias Lindholm, that is, if he can stay healthy, I feel like he's going to have a big year. I think he can have I shouldn't say big, but a much better year than he had before.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right. One more thing before we let you go, Murph. Do you buy into the Bruins? Like, obviously this retooling is going to be a couple years in the doing, at least 2-3 years, kind of in the mold of the Capitals, sort of reshaping themselves in 2 or 3 years to where they were last year. Free agents next year, and obviously they're not all going to get to free agency, but Connor McDavid, Jack Eichel, Kaprizov, I think Cale Makar is in there, Kyle Connor. Like, there's way more names.
Oh, it goes way deeper than that, yeah.
Yeah, there's like 10, 15 legit like stud players, and there's a bunch of centers that could be free agents. A lot of people around here will talk about Jack Eichel, and maybe this is the time that he comes back to the Boston Bruins. Maybe that's part of the long-range plan with the Bruins, is to land that guy and him be the center that kind of answers some of the questions that you're talking about and slots everybody else into where they need to go. And maybe that's one of the big pieces of this puzzle, this retooling, is landing one of those big fish players. How much do you buy into that being part of the grand sort of plan here of trying to lure one of those guys to Boston?
I mean, I know Elliot Friedman already reported that that's what he believes they're doing, and I get it, and it makes sense. But you can't have even half of your plan depend on whether you can get a guy like Jack Eichel. Like, here's the thing. Me personally, I think Jack Eichel's signed by September to an extension, because I don't see the Vegas Golden Knights going out and signing Mitch Marner to let go of Jack Eichel. I just that's their combo right there for the foreseeable future. So I think he gets locked up. So I think he's off the market. Obviously McDavid is. Obviously Makar won't reach market. And I think you said Kyle Connor too. I don't see him either. But there's still a lot of things there. But my plan also would be, if things go in the tank early, and that you're a borderline playoff team, but more a non-playoff team than borderline, you start making deals and you start stocking up more first rounders if you can get them, even second rounders, because next year's draft, according to a lot of scouts, is one of the deepest since 2015. Yeah. That's what I've been told. I don't know the amateurs as well, so I'm just telling you what I'm told. Yeah. But a lot of people are high in this draft, and that's why I found the whole thing of, why aren't the Bruins are stupid that they're not offer sheeting Mason McTavish. First of all, the Ducks are going to match anything that anybody throws at them right now. They've got tons of cap space. They want to keep the guy. The thing is they want a bridge, and McTavish wants long-term. I think they meet halfway at 3 to 4 years or something. It will happen. He's not going to get offer sheeted. He might, but I don't see it happen, and the Bruins aren't going to get him. So let's just throw that out the door. But that's a good thing. Because really, if you wanted him, you were going to have to give up a first, second, and third in next year's draft in the current compensation for an offer sheet if you want to sign a guy for like 7.2 to 7.4 million a year. Yeah. So it just didn't make sense for what their big picture to me. It doesn't make sense right now. I think that, there is some substance to that maybe they're looking at it like, hey, maybe we get into the playoffs just barely and we go on a little run. Who knows? We got a team that's built for the playoffs. You never know what can happen. But if not, we're back in the mix to get a really solid pick and keep stocking up through the draft. Yep. And then, like you said, and then the war chest opens up in terms of talent that's available on the free agent market. And you know what, Joe? Usually when there's that much talent available in the free agent market, the trade market's going to open up, right? Yeah. Teams are going to have to make moves to get their guy. So I think next summer, really, if you're looking at where this thing is going, that's the big test. I think that's Don Sweeney's final test, I would say, to keep his job, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's going to come down to is a couple of more big moves, whether it's like landing a big fish in the draft that's a game changer for you, another one to go along with Hagens, or bringing in a free agent or a trade or something that's going to solidify your team and bringing in that other superstar that you're going to need to pair with David Pastrnak to really get things going, and specifically down the middle, getting a center superstar player that's really going to take care of the needs of this team and what they have to have moving forward in order to become a legit Stanley Cup contender. Because I agree with you, they are not a Stanley Cup contender right now, and there are moves that have to be made and things that have to be happened before you could even consider them in that category. And saying that that's your aspirations to the fans is not really realistic. Yeah. This coming season, no question about it. All right, Murph, I'm going to let you go. What exactly is going on behind you right there?
I don't know, some guy's chopping a tree or something.
Lights flashing in the background too.
Those are just, they left their 4th of July decorations up here. This is my new place. We got a nice above ground pool, but it's nice. I'm on a pool bar right now with the TV there, Joe. I'm liking life.
Who's better than Murph's lifestyle in the summertime right now? He's living high in the hog right now. All right, Murph. Right. Thanks very much for joining us. Thank you for everybody to listen. The Pucks with Haggs podcast is a proud member of the CLNS Media Network. Make sure to hit subscribe to the Bruins Rinkside channel and turn on notifications for when a new video drops on the channel. This show is also brought to you by PrizePicks, largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on PrizePicks when you get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Murph, thanks for joining us. Everybody else up there, thank you, and we'll see you at the rink.